Shalom, Kol Halal, Yahweh Ba'Shem Awashai, Bahasham, Rakak Wadash. Double honors unto the apostles, double honors unto the elder bishops, salutations to all my fellow laborers doing this work in truth and sincerity, risking their lives and their freedom to do so, now more so than ever. To the scattered elect that are scattered around the four corners of the earth, that be like unto the speckled bird, the Israelite foreigners among the heathens, that look like the heathens. And to the Aquath that are listening and learning, to you, I say Shalom. This is your brother Malcolm from the branch of the Great Millstone, coming at you another lesson in truth. And this one is definitely going to be for the Critical Race Historical Facts channel, because this is definitely a critical race issue. And it's backlash over this big budget series, I guess, that's coming out about Cleopatra. And you got these people, casting controversies over whether she should be played by a black woman. And this arguing back and forth about the Egyptians. And what you have to understand is that according to the Bible, all right, and according to history, the Egyptians during the time of the Israelites were a dark race of people, all right? A Negroid type, black, if you will, what people would ignorantly call black people today. The evidence of that is overwhelming. It's like retarded to even begin to argue the point, all right? And I guess that word isn't politically correct anymore, but this isn't a necessarily politically correct, because politically correct in a lot of cases means not telling the truth. All right, so it's just beyond stupid to even begin to argue that point. But let's bring up a couple of receipts, and we're gonna go into some history, some biblical history, which matches up with secular history, because what I'm going to read you in the Bible can be found in secular history. It matches up, so there's no arguing the point. But first, let's establish that the Egyptians, were sons of Ham, the actual Egyptians, prior to the time of the Ptolemaic dynasty. Cleopatra is a part of the Ptolemaic dynasty, and I know she ended up marrying Mark Antony. There was a bunch of Cleopatras, all right, and the chance that she could have been brown skin, well, it's a probability that could have been possible, but that still would not make her not an Edomite. All right, because the Herodians were married to Israelite women, and they were making brown babies, but their fathers were Edomites, like the man on the screen, who's very red. He's translucent. His blood shows forth through his skin. The backdrop where the casting controversies backlash over whether Cleopatra should be played by a black woman, the backdrop is white. His skin doesn't match that. He's not white. All right. They're red, and Cleopatra, I mean, it's a possibility because she could have been melanated, but more than likely she looked more like this guy. Either way, she was the same race as this guy. She definitely was an Edomite. All of them. All right, because the Ptolemies took over Egypt from the so-called black Africans, from the sons of Ham. All right, Mizraim. The Egyptians were called Mizraim. All right, so let's get some receipts to prove that, and then we'll get into some of that history. To clear the whole matter up. So let's go to the receipts. And that history will be found in the Apocrypha. This is this image is from one of those game shows. And on the game show, all right, it says, let's make it bigger. Derived from the Greek word meaning to hide away, which refers, all right, to the books that were purposely excluded from the Bible, and it's called the Apocrypha. It means to be hidden away, and that is the link to a lot of things within Christianity. That is the link to the mystery of the Gentiles. All right, people don't understand that there are two sets of Gentiles. That's a whole nother lesson in itself. You have the Gentiles that are the natural nations, the heathen nations. Heathen just means other people, not the chosen line, not the Lord's holy. Holy means to be separate. The Israelites were a holy people. As a matter of fact, let me grab that scripture. And holy means to be separate. Deuteronomy 7:6. And it reads, "For thou art an holy people unto Yahweh thy power. Yahweh thy power have chosen thee to be a special people unto himself above all people that are upon the face of the earth." All right. So the heathen just means the other nations. All right. It's not saying that they're, bad or wicked or good or anything. It's just simply identifying the other nations. All right. And quite frankly, they really don't matter. They're all extras in this theater that the Lord has created, which is our lives, which we're all a part of, which the Bible is centered in. The Bible is the story of all of our lives, where we came from, what happened in the past, and what's happening now. And it was written before it happened. But back to the receipts. Okay. And so because the portion that I'm going to read, proving the historical racially who Cleopatra was, and the house and the family, house meaning race, people that she came out of, with the Edomites, it can be found right there in the Apocrypha. Okay, so let's go back to the receipts and show another image of Ham. And here's one of the biggest secrets ever kept in the history of mankind. Ham, the youngest son of Noah, all right, says the progenitor of the dark race is not the Negroes, but the Egyptians, the Ethiopians, the Libyans, and the Canaanites. Canaan is where Israel sits today, all right, and they were Africans, the Philistines, the Palestine. That's what the word Palestine comes from, Philistine. They were so-called Africans, and they were removed out of that land after the conquering of when Alexander of Macedon came in. All right. So there's a difference between, and remember, the Israelites came about. They went into Egypt, 70 people, and came out millions. All right. Moses was mistaken for a Hamite, for an Egyptian. Paul was mistaken for a Hamite, all right, an Egyptian. So the Israelites, the tribe of Judah, all right, and the Hamites were both melanated people, but completely different races, complete different bloodlines. Now let's get into the history, biblically, about how Alexander took over most of the known world, the ancient world, back in the East, and parted his land among his four generals, Ptolemy being one of them. I think it was Ptolemy, Lysimachus, Seleucus, and Cassander. All right, those are the four generals that he parted. So let's get to that. Upon his death, when he was about to die, he parted the land between his those four generals. And Ptolemy got all of Egypt and most of North Africa. Hence the reason why the capital city in Egypt is called Alexandria. All right, with all those pyramids and all those, because Hollywood has told a story of Egypt from the time of the Ptolemies, not the time, and then they take those imagery from the time of the Ptolemies and try and match it up with what happened before with the Israelites, and that is a lie. All right, I just showed you who was there during the time of the Israelites. But this is First Maccabees 1:1. And it reads, and it happened after that Alexander, son of Philip the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Chittim, had smitten Darius, the kings of the Persian Medes, and reigned in his stead, in his race, in his stock, in his family, the first over Greece. So the brown skinned Etruscans, all right, let's get the receipts on the Etruscans, were moved out of that land. Go back to the evidence folder. I know the Etruscans, I think, are toward the end there. I know I got a couple of Etruscans in here. The water Yahweh Bassem was shy. All right. These were some of your Etruscan artifacts, all right, from 500 BC. Okay. There's another one. Those were your Hawaiians, your Polynesians. Those were the actual, that's what they're called today. You know, the people in the Fuji Islands and all that. All right, Samoa. Those were your Etruscans. All right. The Roman headdress and all that stuff, that was a part of the Etruscans culture. And when Alexander took it over, they just kind of kept it to themselves. All right. And that's even written, and you can find that writings about that in the Josephus. How they like the Greek culture, and that's what they kind of adapted themselves to. All right. But it says, so he reigned the first over Greece. So these Caucasian men, you know, these Edomites, because Alexander can be traced back to Esau, Edom. All right. Because his father was an Agagite. And Agag, all right, or Agag, you know, tomato, all right, can be traced back to Amalek. And Amalek is a grandson of Esau, Edom. So there's no denying these historical facts. Hence the reason why they removed the Apocrypha from the Bible, because it identified the Caucasian race as the Edomites, which they do not want to be. And they teach a doctrine within Christianity that the Edomites were done away with, but yet they have not produced any evidences that would, and you couldn't eliminate a whole race of people off the earth. That would be hundreds of millions of people. You know, that would be millions and millions upon millions of people. That would be, you know, and according to the Bible, when the Edomites are eliminated off the face of the earth, it is going to be done by the nation of Israel. The Israelites are actually going to do it. So if that were, you know, if that had actually happened, there would be a memorial to it. There will be evidences of it. There would have been movies and books written about it and television shows, and you know, that would have been a show that was probably bigger and more popular than the Ten Commandments or the Wizard of Oz. But it never happened, and they don't want to talk about it. All right. Because the truth of the matter is, the Edomites don't want it to happen, because that is a future prophecy that is about to happen. That happens after World War III. All right, World War III has to take place, and then that is a prophecy that will come after World War III. But anyway, back to the scripture. Let's go. It says, I'll just start in verse 1 again. And it happened after Alexander, son of Philip the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Chittim, had smitten Darius, the king of the Persian Medes, he reigned the first in his stead over Greece. You saw how dark the Persian Medes were when you watched the 300. Okay? They were a melanated race. All right? Which proves that the movie Troy was also, you know, a complete and total lie. Because there were no white people in any of those battles, because Alexander took over Greece and it became Caucasian about 333 years after the Trojan War. So when the Trojan War actually happened, it was more the people that, like I just showed you, I showed the receipts of the actual Etruscans, the actual Grecians. All right. Let's go back to the receipts from the evidence folder. And here we go. Once again, these were the people that were warring with each other, all right, at that time. Okay, those were your Etruscans, your sons of Javan. Javan's nickname was Greece, all right, or Yawan or Javan, all right. So back to the scripture, and so you don't get this type of history lessons from Esau Edom because doesn't benefit them. Right? And it says, and made many wars and won many strongholds and slew the kings of the earth. So Alexander went through slaying and conquering all throughout Asia, all throughout North Africa, all throughout Europe. He took Europe from the brown skin Etruscans. All right. He drove all the brown skinned people out of most of Asia, conquered them, and joined them unto his armies, made them tributaries. And he definitely drove the Hamitic, the sons of Ham, Mizraim, those tall African Egyptians that left all sorts of relics behind to prove they were there and they existed prior to the Ptolemies when the so-called white man took over, but they just want to ignore all those artifacts like they don't exist. Is just completely ridiculous. All right. But it says, and went through the ends of the earth and took spoils of many nations, insomuch as the earth was quiet before him, where he was exalted and his heart was lifted up. All right. And he was exalted. They began to call him Alexander the Great. All right. And he gathered a mighty strong host and ruled over countries and nations and kings who became tributaries unto him. So a lot of nations that he conquered, well, some nations just said, look, man, we can't beat you in war. We just say, look, we bend the knee and here's the scepter of our king, so to speak. All right. And it says, and he gathered a mighty strong host and ruled over countries and nations and kings who became tributaries unto him. And after these things, he fell sick and perceived he should die. So he completed his mission. The Lord set him up to do what he was going to do, to set the motions of the Bible in order. All right. So that these facts, because this is the Lord's story. All right. And so that everything can play out today, Alexander had to play his role in history to set up the nation of Edom. All right. And and this was the first time that's why they call him Alexander the Great, and they uplift him so much. And they tell you that civilization started with him because the reason is that the so-called white people are on the bottom. This was the first time that they came into power, was through Alexander. And the Bible's going to tell you what happened with that power. It says, and after these things, he fell sick and perceived that he should die. Wherefore he called his servants, such as were honorable and had been brought up with him from his youth, and parted his kingdom among them while he was yet still alive, yet alive. So Alexander reigned 12 years and then died, and his servants bare rule, every one in his place. All right, because he set them up where he wanted them to be. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves. So they declared themselves royals when they are not. All right, as they still do to this day. All right. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves, so that their sons after them, and many evils were multiplied in the earth. Evil multiplied in the earth when Esau, Edom, all right, the people of Alexander, the Edomites, who refer to themselves as Caucasian or white today, came into power. And those four men were those four generals of Alexander. And Ptolemy got the dominion over Egypt. And then they didn't respect the boundaries that Alexander gave them, because he wanted them to rule those separate. He parted it among them so that they could rule, so that his people could rule. But they began to fight in war, as they still do to this day. If Esau, Edom was to eliminate everybody else off the earth, they would destroy each other. And that's what's about to happen now. The Western Edomites are about to fight the Eastern Edomites. Okay, so going back to that, then you begin to understand that Cleopatra all right, she was queen of the Ptolemaic kingdom, all right, of Egypt. This particular Cleopatra is the one in question. And she was the daughter of Edomites, the sons of Ptolemy. All right, Cleopatra Philopator was queen of the Ptolemaic kingdom of Egypt from 51 to 30 BC and the last active ruler and a member of the Ptolemaic dynasty. She was a descendant of its founder, Ptolemy. That's who I'm talking about. Soter, a Macedonian Greek general and companion of Alexander the Great. Alexander set up her great-grandfather, her great-great-great-grandfather. All right, however many greats it was. All right. Ptolemy the First was a companion. So she is a descendant of the Caucasian ruler of Egypt that drove out the Hamitic African people out of that land. And they haven't been, Egypt has fallen. Canaan has fallen. All right. Egypt hasn't been great since the Israelites left it. All right. So that is the facts in this matter. So these people should not be upset that Cleopatra is being played by a white woman, that she was played by Elizabeth Taylor, you know, over almost half a century ago, or more than half a century ago. I believe that movie was made in the early 60s or late 50s. All right. That would be atomically correct. All right. So with that, I want to give all praises, all honor and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakar Kadash, Wa Abba Babal, Kwam Yasrala, Shalom.